Title: El Árbol del Colgado. In the heart of San Miguel, shrouded by the creeping tendrils of dusk, the old hospital civil loomed like a specter from a forgotten era. Its cracked walls and shattered windows whispered tales of suffering, loss, and unspeakable horrors. But the monument its presence cast across the town lay not in its abandoned corridors. It lay next door, in the gnarled branches of a solitary tree, known in hushed reverence as El Árbol del Colgado. The legend went that many decades ago, the town was haunted by a malevolent figure whose wrath descended upon the sick and weak. The rumors spoke of a doctor, obsessed with his quest for knowledge. It was he who, provoked by grief after losing his beloved fiancée to a relentless illness, had turned to the darkest of practices. Under the cover of night, he performed grotesque experiments on the dying, treating them as mere vessels for his twisted ambitions. In his desolation, he sought to capture the soul of his lost love, transforming it into a grotesque shadow of life. But the townsfolk had had enough. In a dark pact, they decided to take justice into their own hands. On a bitter night, they stormed the hospital, brandishing torches and pitchforks. They found the doctor in the very act of his unholy rituals, a grotesque marionette manipulated by doomed souls. In their rage, the townsfolk dragged him into the woods, where they hung him from the very tree that still looms ominously above the cemetery. Thus began the cycle of dread surrounding El Árbol del Colgado. Whispers filtered through generations, warning of the cursed tree whose roots were fed by the bitterness and despair of the doctor's fate. They spoke of ghostly whispers that drifted in the breeze, of shadows that danced at the edges of sight, and of the souls that hung there even after death. The last threads of dusk intertwined with night, wrapping the town in a cloak of uncertainty. Despite the warnings, three friends, Alba, Diego, and Nora, decided to explore the tales of El Árbol del Colgado one grim evening. The trio, each in their 20s, had been swayed by the allure of local legend and the thrill of a good story, convinced that they would simply find nothing but an old tree. As they approached the cemetery, an uneasy chill settled around them. The night was oppressive, the silence punctuated only by the rustle of leaves. The tree emerged slowly through the draping shadows, its branches twisted as if perpetually caught in a silent scream. The friends gathered beneath it, sharing nervous laughter that bounced back from the gnarled bark. "Let's take a selfie," Alba declared, pulling her phone from her pocket, the glow casting an ethereal light on their faces. Diego and Nora squeezed beside her, a mock fear painted across their features. As the camera clicked, a memory of unearthly whispers fluttered through the air, but they brushed it off as a figment of their imagination. With the photo captured, they decided to explore further, wander through the crumbling ruins of the hospital civil. They climbed over the crumbled stone walls, stepping cautiously into the darkness. The air was heavy, laden with dust, and each footfall echoed like a heartbeat in the void. Shadows played tricks on their minds, and every creak of the building felt like a warning. "That's where they say he did it," Diego pointed, his voice a tremor. He gestured towards a door ajar, revealing what remained of a treatment room, the walls stained with the remnants of time and despair. Nora, feeling braver than ever, stepped toward the door. As she entered, the air shifted with a palpable energy, a change that the others couldn't ignore. A soft scuffling noise broke the thin veil of silence, and suddenly, a sensation of dread gripped them. "Nora!" Alba called out but was met with no response. The two exchanged glances, fear washing over them. "We should go after her. This isn't right." As they ventured into the room, they found it empty, save for a heavy silence that weighed like lead upon their chests. Suddenly, the door swung shut with a force that rattled the old frame, plunging them into darkness. Panic set in as they fumbled for their phones to illuminate the room. But their lights flickered, as if consumed by an unseen force. A muffled sob echoed around them, and they turned towards the sound, hearts racing. Shapes began to form in the dark corners, shadows that writhed and twisted as if mirroring the agony they were meant to represent. And then they saw her. Nora stood by the window, her back to them. She quivered slightly, her head bowed, as though in deep conversation. "Nora. What's wrong?" Alba's voice trembled, breaking through the thick veil of fear. Nora turned, her face pale as moonlight, eyes wide and brimming with terror. I can't move. It's holding me." As if recognizing the moment, the whispering intensified, a cacophony of voices entwined with a low, guttural sound that seemed to shake the very foundation of the building. Diego stepped closer, reaching for her, but an unseen force surged forth, pushing him back against the wall with such ferocity that he gasped for breath. Alba could feel the air turning cold, heavy with anguish. Nora, you have to fight it. She screamed, and in that moment, the shadows surged forward, their forms coalescing into indistinct shapes that bore witness to the deeds of the doctor. Their hollow whispers began to emerge into coherent words, an anguished lament that spoke of their pain, their endless torment. Suddenly, the rusty window creaked open, allowing a gust of wind that expelled the shadows, creating a momentary light that engulfed them. In that breath of clarity, Diego seized Nora's hand, pulling her back into reality. Let's get out of here. Now. As they fled down the crumbling halls, the cacophony erupted into wails of fury. The shadows reached for them, grasping at their limbs like desperate hands yearning for release. They stumbled out of the hospital's rotting confines, collapsing onto the dewy grass of the cemetery, gasping for breath. The tree stood before them, unchanged and ominous, but something was different. It seemed to shift slightly, as if alive, watching them with a potency that sent shivers down their spines. The whispers dwindled, leaving only the rustle of leaves. They gathered themselves, huddled beneath the tree's twisted branches, heartbeats racing as the dread from their near escape settled in. In that chilling moment of silence, they understood the weight of the legend. Nora looked at her friends, their faces pale under the moonlight. We should have listened. As the three stood there, the tree silently watched over, its roots entangled with the anger and sorrow of the past. And deep within its ancient bark echoed the whispers of those who hung from its branch, forever etching their story into the souls who dared to draw near. In the coming weeks, they vowed never to return, and yet the legend of El Árbol del Colgado lingered over San Miguel as they carried its haunting within them, a tale of dark echoes stitched into their very beings, a reminder that some trees grow not just in soil, but in the bitterness of the lost.